Asks tough questions. She's not afraid to speak her mind. You've read her column. Maybe you're a fan on Facebook.
No topic is off limits. Straight to the point.
There's no chaser. You're now watching Straight Talk with Carla Zuill.
Welcome to another edition of Straight Talk, and I'm your host, Carla Zuill. Now, today we have with us in studio social commentator Christopher Famous. Mr. Famous, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Zuill.
No problem. Now, you're a columnist with the Bermuda Sun.
That's correct.
In the last 2 years, however, you've really started to express yourself in the community, both in social media and through your newspaper column. Who is Christopher Famous?
Who is Christopher Famous? I'm a Bermudian, and I think, well, I shouldn't say I think, what I express is the thoughts and feelings of other Bermudians, that some are maybe a bit timid to speak up for themselves. Some just are frustrated and don't want to say the wrong thing. And some just for, I guess you'll say, their own personal reasons would like to remain in the background.
Now, you've been described as politically astute, but have you always had this savvy towards the political arena in Bermuda?
Well, I was involved with the PLP leading up to the 1998 election. Then once the PLP got in, I kind of eased back, work on my family and building a home and businesses. And leading up to the 2012 election, I decided to get back involved in politics, not so much running as a candidate, but working behind the scenes in various capacities. Well, like most Bermudians, especially our generation, when you have children and potentially grandchildren, you're concerned about their future. You're concerned about your own future. And what I saw leading up to the last election was that we had the rebirth of the UBP, renamed as the OBA, coming along and spewing a lot of untruths about the PLP, number one. A lot of denigrating talk about Bermudians in particular. And number two, they were basically, in my opinion and in the opinion of many, they were giving us a 649, so I felt somebody had to speak up against that. And things evolved. Initially, I was writing in the Royal Gazette whenever they chose to print what I wrote. Sometimes they would delay printing my letters for 2 and 3 weeks when I saw OBA supporters' letters being printed the next day. And for about 6 months, I endured that. And then one day I got a call that the editor of the Bermuda Sun wanted to see me. So I was like, well, I'm not dead. I'm not going to jail. What this guy wants to see me for? So I had a meeting with Tony McWilliams, and he sat down, we talked for about an hour. He said he wanted to offer me a full-time column twice a week to speak on social and political issues. So this was like October 2012, which was give or take 3 months before the election. Mm-hmm. So I have 2 columns, one on Wednesday, one on Friday. The Wednesday is on social issues, lighthearted sort of stuff, and the Friday one is more on some hard-hitting political stuff. So that's the evolution of my columnist career thus far.
And how has the reception been? I mean, you've been doing it now for close to 2 years.
Well, as predicted, those that do not support the PLP have their views about me. Those that do support the PLP have their views about me. But I would say it's going great, because there's not a day that I can walk in Bermuda that somebody doesn't stop me and say, hey, are you Chris Famous? And I say, yeah. And they say, yeah, I read your column the other day. I don't agree with everything you say, but I read your column every week. Very often persons stop me and say, you know, I learned something from reading about your column. Now, let me just backtrack that alone for me to write something, I make sure that I'm factual. I don't write libelous stuff, and I give people the truth, because had I not wrote the truth, if I didn't write the truth, I'll be up for libel, getting sued. The newspaper could get sued, and more importantly, the people would be getting false information. So in order to do that, I have to do a lot of research before I write on a topic. And part and parcel of that research is collaborating with other persons from different fields, whether it be politicians, economists, statisticians, or persons, social workers, various walks of life have come to me and says, listen, I'd like to help you with your research. So when you see me write, or when you read what I wrote, these are like, if you read it on a Wednesday, it's been at least 2 weeks research put into that information. So what you're getting, that in that 550 words or so, what you're getting is factual information. Now, of course, I have my own little opinion on stuff, but no one's ever been able to say I lied about anything, you see?
Do you think that your column has had some influence in certain circles?
I would say yes, in the sense to say that the fact that almost every week one of those OBA persons are calling my name in the paper, it seems that I am somehow hitting a nerve somewhere. But they call my name in sometimes derogatory terms, but they could never once say what I wrote was a lie. You see, and what the bigger picture for me, Carla, is not necessarily about, oh, let's get the PLP back in. That's only one step. The bigger picture for me, and I think as for you, even with your show and your column, is about educating our people, expanding the horizons beyond what they see on television, watching Basketball Wives or Love and Hip Hop, right? So my goal, my personal goal with my column and even this show or whatever else I do, is not based solely on a political end game. It's about expanding the knowledge base of all Bermudians, no matter if you're dark skinned like me, brown like you, light skinned like others, white like Alan Gordon. It doesn't matter. Bermudians need to be educated outside of what most Bermudians, once they finish college, that they figure that's the end of my education process. And I think that there's a larger world. I shouldn't say I think. I know there's a larger world out there that we all, myself included, yourself, have been educated on, whether it be by social media, traditional media, talking with each other. So that's the column is merely the vehicle for that, just like for you, this beautiful TV show is the vehicle to educate the wider audience, because how technology is now, once something is on the internet, it's basically there forever.
Right, never goes away.
Right. So 1,000 years from now, if the world's still existing, someone's gonna watch this show and know what you've done. Someone's gonna read a column that I wrote and all what I've done, or myself and the persons alone who's worked along with me.
Okay. So how have we lacked in education? We're gonna have Mr. Famous answer that when we return. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Straight Talk, and I'm your host, Carla Zuill. Now, Mr. Famous, before the break, you were talking about a lack of education. We're about the same age. Where do you think our generation has lost out as far as in education in life?
Well, I think our generation was probably, quote unquote, the last generation to go through the old system, the primary school, high school, GCE, blah, blah, blah. We were, quote unquote, the last of the Mohicans. What I think a lot of Bermudians lack as far as education is not necessarily master's degree, doctorate degree, or so on. But we educated ourselves to come back and work for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
We educated ourselves to know all what's contained within that textbook. We didn't allow ourselves to say, well, maybe I could earn my own TV station. Maybe I could earn my own newspaper. We, how can I say? Because over the last 20 years, we had a lot of financial success. People making $100,000 easily. It's like, well, I don't need to do anything more. I'm arrived.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have that hunger to say, how can I reach out for more? How can I start my own business? How can I start my own school? How can I do anything? How can I be a better journalist?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I didn't go to school for journalism. I got a GC in English, so I know how to put a sentence together.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got spell check and all that. But for me, even writing a column is an educational journey for me, because I have to learn how to get information and disseminate it in a way that the common layman to the highest scholar could understand. So our generation, I think where we've held ourselves back is being content, working for somebody, working for this company, working for this insurance company. So once we arrived at that position, we felt, well, we don't need to go any further. Not say like we're lazy, but we were content with being employed.
So do you think that this recession in some ways is a good thing for Bermudians?
I would say it's mixed blessing, because obviously we have seen a lot of our peers suffer, right? So you could never say that's good for the persons who've lost their jobs or potentially losing their houses. However, there are those of us who had that comfortable $100,000 a year job and $10,000 a year bonus and can take 2 trips a year, who were content with just being that. Mm-hmm. And now, because of global issues, outsourcing, downsizing, technology, so on and so forth, a lot of these international companies are contracting, slimming down.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody could have been making $100,000, $150,000 last year, and this year they're now redundant. What are they going to do?
Now, I've heard someone say that, this is a perfect time to grow small businesses, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But what I also hear more than ever is that Bermudians do not support one another. If something comes from overseas, or if someone from overseas creates something, Bermudians flock to it. But when one of our own do it, regardless if they're black or white, there's that lack of support. Do you agree with that sentiment?
I would agree with that, and that's a cultural mindset that we can only blame ourselves for, because we have this concept that that Bermudians are here, non-Bermudians, or something that is an entity that's non-Bermudian is here, right? And so when, let's say for example, you're doing this television show, it's great, you're exposing a lot of information to a lot of Bermudians throughout the world. Now, let's say Katie Couric came down here. You would have people lined up to want to get on this interview. She's not a Bermudian. She doesn't, not knocking her, but she doesn't know the subtle nuances of Bermuda. Mm-hmm. So how can she conduct a proper interview? She just do some generic sort of questions. So my back to your question, what do we need to do? We need to get out of the mindset that, oh well, Carla's already got an SUV, I don't need to support her. Or Chris has already got 3 houses, I don't need to support him. Get out of that mindset, because when you go to Front Street or Reed Street and spend your money, right? Mm-hmm. You ain't saying, I'm not going to spend my money at such and such store because Mr. So-and-so has already earns half of Front Street. You spend your money freely. So while you spend your money there, and not spending your money on Cool Street just as freely. We let's be honest, we as Black Bermudians, right? We have this mindset that why should I give Carla something? Why should I give Chris my hard-earned money? Why should I support them? And we have this internal pettiness that always holds us back. Whilst others may not necessarily like each other, but they understand working together is the way forward, right? Oh, I give a lot of respect to the Portuguese community in Bermuda that they stuck together under some hard times. They were treated like dirt by many of us, many people in Bermuda. They stuck together and they transitioned themselves from one generation to the next, from farmers to earning construction companies, earning grocery stores, earning a lot of land, so on and so forth. So if they were able to do that within 1 or 2 generations, us who have been here for multiple generations, why aren't we able to do that? No, I'm not, I don't knock on next culture. That's your thing, progress. But I'm going to sit down and say, well, what is that culture doing that my culture isn't doing? Why are they moving forward while we are regressing? And, it's not about hating on them, but it's about setting your goals and saying, finding your circle, maybe 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, finding that circle that you could work with and move forward. You can't save everybody. That's the bottom line. You can only save those who want to save themselves.
But we as a people, how do we change that mindset?
Well, we continuously, persons like yourself, myself, others in the community, too many, I won't say too many to mention, but there are many persons in the community who aren't afraid to speak the truth, right? Now, if you want this candy coating stuff about, well, girl, everything will be all right and just hang in there. That's candy coating. Tell her, look, you need to get up off your thing and do something for yourself, right? You can't be relying on financial assistance all your life. You can't say, oh, well, I'm just going to go to England and go live off welfare in England. That's a cop-out mentality that I see. I'm kind of upset to see too many Bermudians trying to take the easy road out and not stay here and fight for what's yours. Not fight like physically, gang warfare, but fight to establish yourself, to make something of yourself as a generation. When our parents or grandparents came from the West Indies, they came with nothing, right? They had to work hard, buy land, build houses, so we had a foundation for ourselves. So it's our responsibility to do the same for our children. And although the obstacles may be there, working together helps to knock down obstacles. And that to me is the greatest social education that we could have. It's called self-empowerment.
Okay.
Working together.
And we'll discuss more about this social empowerment as soon as Straight Talk with Carla Zuill returns. And we're back. This is Straight Talk, and I'm your host, Carla Zuill. Now, Mr. Famous, before the break, you were talking about empowerment. But I have a question. How can someone who is at the bottom of the totem pole and can barely survive, how can they see hope yet they seem entrenched in a hopeless situation?
Well, it's similar to somebody saying, how do we eat an elephant? First you're like, wow, how do I eat an elephant? And it all really comes on to one bite at a time. So for those that feel they're at the bottom of the totem pole or things look glum, I would say set small goals for yourself to say, within 6 months, I'm gonna achieve this. Within 1 year, I'm gonna achieve that. We all have to have a master plan. That a 1 year plan, 5 year plan, 10 year. Set these goals. Well, you're not always gonna achieve all the goals you set, but if you don't set any goals, you will achieve none. those who fail to plan to fail. I'm not saying that in a condescending manner. I'm simply saying that there are many persons out there who are willing to help, but people don't approach them. Or they only approach them for short-term gains, like, can I borrow $100 for this, right? I'm not going to get into that whole adage about teach a man how to fish, and that's a little bit too cliched. Teach me how to make a fishing hook. Teach me how to make a fishing boat. So there's a diversity in things that one can do to succeed. Some people may measure the success by getting a new car, getting a new apartment, being able to go to Disney World. There's a fleeting successes, right? You have to set permanent success milestones as to what you need to do to make a flip to the next success.
Okay.
Right?
Now, let's reflect. Let's go back to December 2012. Did you have a clue? Did you have any inclination, any gut feeling that the PLP was going to lose the election?
Well, lose the election, I would say no. I knew we were going to lose seats simply because of the demographics of the how the boundaries have changed. Because, you know, let's be real, people vote along racial lines in Bermuda. So if you're in a constituency that is over 35 to 40% white Bermudians, right? That's an OBA. The OBA is most likely going to win that, just because of voting patterns that white Bermudians, I'm not saying anything that statistics hasn't borne out. 95% of white Bermudians are going to vote for any party besides the PLP, right? So if you have a constituency with 1,100 voters, 40%, if at least 40% are white, then that's 440 voters. You need 500 votes to win, 501 votes to win, right? So all the OBA needed to do was get all the voters out, right? All the supporters out, and that's what they did. And that's what we got. And more, I would say more importantly, they ran a campaign that dissuaded a lot of PLP supporters from not voting for OBA, but just not voting at all. So to say I thought we were going to lose the entire election, no, that came as a little shocker to me. However, I knew it was going to be close, right? In reflection, you know, I wasn't making a lot of decisions per se, but there were some decisions made that worked more in the favor of the OBA than the PLP. One of which was, I guess anybody would say at this point, was waiting so long to call the election, because you gave the OBA, the UBP disbanded in May 2011 and converted themselves into the OBA that same 2 days later.
No, to the BDA.
No. BDA was 2010. The remnants of the UBP disbanded in May 2011 and converted themselves, merged themselves with the BDA and formed the OBA. Now, me, I'd have called the election that same day and said, all right, you know the OBA? Slam them, right? Because while you got in people's mind, just load the UBP. You don't give them time to, you know, be a transformer. You know what I mean? Change from a robot to a car. Like, you know what I mean? Then people think, well, maybe it is a car. So I think the biggest critical mistake that was made was just giving them too much time.
Now, the OBA has been in power for about 14 months now. Do you think, can you be objective enough to say whether or not you think they're doing a good job?
Well, let's put it this way. What are the polls saying? The polls are saying that the PLP is in lead over them. The polls are saying the Honorable Mark Bean is 10 points ahead of the Premier, Craig Cannoner. What are the people saying on Facebook? What did the people say on Friday? Last week, Wednesday. What are the people saying on the airwaves? So take my own opinion out and let the polls speak for themselves. Let the voice of the people speak for themselves. And it pretty much says that they are doing a good job for who they need to be doing a good job for, but for the masses of Bermudians, the Bermudians are saying you're not doing a good enough job. First of all, you promised 2,000 jobs. That hasn't happened. They promised transparency. That hasn't happened. They promised a referendum. That hasn't happened. They promised to suspend term limits. That hasn't happened. Just last week, Friday, it was revealed on ZBM that they were plotting to cancel the referendum from as way back as January. When you have I just don't say but when you have persons such as Al Seymour, who is, for lack of a better term, seemingly an OBA supporter, writing columns stating that he doesn't even believe the excuse that they gave why they pulled the referendum. You have one of the founders, Mr. John Barrett, writing columns saying that they're not being transparent. The question that they came with the referendum was crap, right? Was just, a loaded question. So even you remove myself as a PLP supporter, and the facts are laid bare that these guys are, up to a lot of skullduggery, right? And before going, I don't want to go too far into that particular, a lot of stuff. But the bottom line is that they are seemingly serving persons who aren't remotely related to the common Bermudian.
So, perfect time to ask you, is commercial immigration one of those items that seem to be catering to that particular person you're talking about?
Well, let's look at the track record. The very first thing that they did was abolish term limits. Term limits is meant for persons to stay in Bermuda no more than 10 years, because if you stay in Bermuda on work permit over 10 years, by United Nations Charter, you could be eligible for Bermudian citizenship or status. All right? So they abolished that. So that means persons who have been here for 9 years, or up to last year have been here 9 years and were due to leave, are now here for 10 years going into 11. So somewhere along the line, they're going to test that law to say, hey, I'm eligible by United Nations law, I'm eligible for Bermudian status. So that's step one to show what the intentions were. Fast forward to, I would say, June, you start to see columns by Phil Barnett and some other gentleman writing in favor of selling Bermudian status. So when the OBA was asked in the House of Assembly in July, or June or July, do they plan on selling Bermudian status? AMP Travel Monis and AMP Dr. Grant Gibbons got up and said, oh, the PLP is making up stories. We have no intentions of selling status, and you're just trying to pull the boogeyman, and Ray denied it to the hilt. Now I have my, guess you'd say, sources within different government departments, so I knew certain mechanizations were going on while they were denying it. I knew certain things were being put in place. So I wrote several columns on that, and I was at the BIU annual banquet in September, and I see a group of OBA supporters and persons. I'm saying hi to them. So some along the way, Minister Faye comes to me and says, hey, you're Chris Famous? I'm like, yeah. He said, oh, I just wanted to ask you a question. I said, well, what's the question? He says, where you got all your figures from? about how many people may be eligible for status. I said, government statistics department. He's like, oh, those aren't the figures they gave me. I said, well, you need to go back to your people because the figures that I got are accurate, right? So that's when I knew that he was planning on introducing some form of status, because when I produced this column to show that 6,000 people could be, up to 13,000 people could be eligible for status, right? That kind of shook him that, wow, the truth is now coming out. So fast forward to the throne speech in 2000 in November, this November going. They say they're going to introduce a pathway to citizenship for people and commercial immigration. So all that denying they did a couple months down the line has now been thrown out the door. Fast forward to January now, they bring in this lady, Miss Sumption from DC, to talk about commercial immigration. My point is that the OBA has a pattern. When they want to do something, they use or allow persons who aren't officially tied to OBA to start writing columns on a topic. They did it with term limits. They did it with gaming, right? How we need this, we need that. So when I start to see, those are like the what you call canary in the coal mine. So when I start to see those persons popping up with columns, I know that this is the direction that they're trying to convince Bermuda that we need to go.
Should our locals be alarmed?
They need to be alarmed, because commercial immigration, depending on the parameters that are set, would allow someone to come in here, buy Bermudian status. They're now just as Bermudian as you and I, right? And they can go buy property. They could go get a job or open up a business, right? So all the Bermudians who are trying to start their own business, you now got competition, right? And most importantly, they can, the next election, they could go vote. So back in the 70s, they did the same thing, not so much commercial where they sell status, but they allow persons from England to come here, get prime government jobs, and within 3 years, they were allowed to vote. Whereas mostly black Bermudians have been there for years, didn't get the right to vote up until 1968, right? So you see, the OBA is the UBP. The same stuff they did then, they're doing now, they're just dressing it up in a different term.
Okay.
Right? So Bermudians need to be extremely alarmed.
So there you have it, folks, from Mr. Famous. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And there you have it, another edition of Straight Talk. I'm your host, Carla Zuill, and we hope that you tune in again soon.
If you have a topic you'd like to discuss on Straight Talk, send an email to talk@channel82.pm.
Thanks for watching Straight Talk with Carla Zuill.